Rose Callahan was 61 years old, and she was standing at the kitchen counter of her house in Naperville, Illinois, making chicken soup from scratch because her grandson, Owen, had a cold, and Owen believed with absolute certainty that his grandmother's chicken soup was the only substance on earth capable of defeating illness. He was 7 years old, and he made this argument with the passionate conviction that only a 7-year-old can bring to bear on the subject of soup, and Rose had long ago decided that she would rather be the kind of grandmother who made soup from scratch than the kind who opened a can, even if nobody could tell the difference, because Owen could tell the difference, and Owen was the person who mattered. He had his father's red hair and his mother's freckles and a gap between his front teeth that Rose thought was the most perfect gap she had ever seen. He was in 2nd grade at Clifton Elementary School on Maple Drive. He loved soccer and magic tricks and a book series about a mouse who solved mysteries, and he called his grandmother Gran Rose because when he was learning to talk he had mashed the two words together and the name stuck, and Rose wouldn't have traded it for anything. Rose's neighbors on Birchwood Court knew her as the retired schoolteacher who had the best garden on the street. She had taught 3rd grade for 11 years before she stopped and moved to Naperville to be close to her daughter, Claire, and Claire's husband, Tom and Owen. She was involved in the community. She volunteered at the library on Tuesdays. She brought food to every neighborhood gathering, always something made from scratch, because people needed feeding and Rose had time and good hands for cooking. She drove a silver Honda CR-V with a University of Notre Dame sticker on the back window that her son-in-law Tom had put there and that she had never removed because it made him happy. She wore her gray hair in a practical cut that she got trimmed every 6 weeks at a salon on Washington Street. She had warm brown eyes and a face that had been outdoors long enough to be honest about it. She was 61, and she looked 61, and the only things about her that didn't match the picture were her hands, which were slightly too strong for a retired schoolteacher, and her posture, which was too precisely balanced, and the way she moved through any space as though she had already calculated every possible angle of entry, exit, and threat. Her daughter Claire noticed the last one but attributed it to her mother's general watchfulness. "You always know where everyone is," Claire said once. "It's a little unnerving. Teachers have to know where their students are," Rose said, and smiled and changed the subject. She had been changing the subject for 14 years. The phone rang at 9:47 a.m. on a Thursday morning while the soup was simmering. It was Claire. Her voice was 3 notes above its normal register, the voice of a woman who was trying to sound controlled and not succeeding, because the thing she was trying to control was too large. "Mom, there's something happening at Owen's school. I don't know everything yet. They're saying men with guns went inside. The police are there. I'm trying to get there, but they won't let parents near the building. Mom, Owen is in there." Rose turned off the burner under the soup. She set the wooden spoon on the counter. She looked at the window above the sink, at the ordinary suburban yard beyond it, at the bird feeder that Owen had helped her fill last Saturday, a perfectly ordinary Saturday when the world was its correct size. "How many men?" Rose said. "What? How many armed men? Did they say?" "I don't." "4, I think. 4 or 5. The news is saying 4. "What part of the building?" "The whole school is in lockdown." "Mom, why are you asking? Is Owen's class on the ground floor or the 2nd floor?" "2nd floor, room 212. "Mom, what do you need to know that for?" "I'm coming," Rose said. "Don't do anything. Stay back from the perimeter. I'll call you when I can." She hung up. Rose stood in her kitchen for 8 seconds. The soup was still releasing steam from the pot. The house smelled like thyme and bay leaf and the particular warmth of something slow-cooked that made a house feel inhabited and safe. Owen would want the soup when he came home. She would finish it later. She walked into her bedroom. She opened the closet. She moved the shoe rack to the side. Behind it, in the corner where the wall met the floor, there was a section of baseboard that looked like every other section of baseboard, unless you knew to press the upper left corner, which Rose did, and it released. And behind it was a shallow recess that she had cut into the drywall herself during her first week in this house, because old habits were the truest habits, and Rose had been building hidden spaces for much longer than she had been making soup. Inside the recess was a Heckler & Koch P30SK pistol, 2 magazines, a suppressor, a tactical folding knife, a phone that was not her regular phone, and a laminated card with a single number written on it in permanent marker. Rose had not looked at the card in 4 years. She had not opened the recess in 4 years. She had told herself, with increasing conviction over those 4 years, that she was done, that the woman who had used spaces like this and weapons like these was finished. That Gran Rose, the soup maker, the library volunteer, the woman with the Notre Dame sticker on the CRV, was who she was now and who she intended to remain. Owen was in a school with armed men. Rose assembled the pistol with movements that were so automatic, they bypassed conscious thought entirely, loaded both magazines, attached the suppressor, clipped the knife to her waistband, put the phone in her pocket. She changed from her kitchen clothes into dark pants, a dark shirt, and walking shoes with thick rubber soles that made no noise on hard floors. She looked at herself in the closet mirror for 1 second. A 61-year-old woman with gray hair and brown eyes and hands that were slightly too strong for a retired schoolteacher. Then she walked out to her car. Rose Callahan had not always been a schoolteacher. She had been a schoolteacher for 11 years, and those 11 years were real, and the children she taught were real, and the lesson plans and the parent conferences and the classroom decorations were all real. But before those 11 years, there had been 16 years of something else entirely, something that the school board and the library committee and the neighbors on Birchwood Court and her own daughter would never know about. She had served in the CIA's Special Activities Center ground branch. She was recruited at 26 out of Army Special Forces, one of the first women to complete Ranger School, subsequently identified for a program that pulled the most capable operators from the entire military pipeline and placed them into covert paramilitary roles. She completed ground branch selection. She deployed 16 years across the Middle East, Eastern Europe, and Africa. Counterterrorism, hostage recovery, high-value target interdiction. She had entered buildings in Mosul and Kandahar and Tripoli and Nairobi that contained men who were planning to kill Americans, and she had stopped them, not through diplomacy, not through negotiation, through the direct, precise, irreversible application of force by someone who was very good at applying it. She was not the most physically imposing operative in the program. She was 5'7", and she weighed 140 pounds, and she did not look dangerous, and that was, in many ways, the most dangerous thing about her. Her call sign was Cardinal, not because of the bird, because of the color. In the intelligence community, a cardinal target was a priority so high it required personal authorization from the director. Rose was given that designation not for a target but for her operational record, because she had never missed a cardinal target in 16 years. Whatever she was sent to do, she did. Whatever she was sent to retrieve, she retrieved. Whatever she was sent to stop, she stopped. She left the agency at 43. Her reasons were private and they stayed private. She used a connection to get a teaching certificate. She taught 3rd grade. She was good at it. Children responded to her the same way that teams in the field had responded to her, with a trust that was immediate and instinctive. Because Rose Callahan was the kind of person who made you feel that everything was under control even when it wasn't, especially when it wasn't. She retired from teaching at 54 and moved to Naperville when Owen was born because she decided that being Gran Rose was more important than anything else she had left to be. And she had been right. For 7 years she had been right. She drove to Clifton Elementary. She parked 3 streets away on a residential block that the police perimeter hadn't reached yet. She walked the remaining distance on sidewalks, moving with the careful, unhurried pace of a woman on a morning walk, visible and non-threatening, nobody worth looking at twice. She assessed the police presence as she approached. 2 patrol cars at the main entrance, a command van on the south side, a negotiator's vehicle near the front, approximately 12 officers visible, more inside the perimeter. The building had been evacuated on the east and south sides, where 240 children who were not in lockdown classrooms had been moved to the parking lot of the church across the street. Owen's class was in room 212, 2nd floor, northeast corner. Rose circled the building from a distance of half a block, staying on public sidewalks, looking like a resident who was watching the emergency response with the ordinary curiosity of someone who lived nearby. She was counting cameras, counting officers, counting entry points, mapping the building's exterior against the floor plan she had memorized when Owen started at Clifton. And she had, on the first day of school while the other grandparents were taking photographs, quietly noted every entrance, every exit, every camera position, Every sight line. She found what she was looking for on the north side of the building. A maintenance door, partially obscured by a bank of HVAC units, that backed against a narrow service alley between the school and the neighboring property. The alley was not visible from the main police perimeter because the HVAC units blocked the sightline from the command van. A single officer was stationed at the east corner of the building, 30 meters away, facing south. Rose timed his attention patterns. He checked his phone every 4 minutes. Routine, not an alert officer in a crisis. A supplemental officer who had been placed at a secondary position and was maintaining presence without urgency because the active scene was on the south side and the north side was quiet, and young officers are human beings, and human beings are not good at vigilance in locations where nothing is happening. Rose moved through the alley during his phone check. She reached the maintenance door. Standard commercial lock. She picked it in 38 seconds with tools from her keychain that looked like a stylus and a bottle opener to anyone who wasn't looking closely. The door opened. She slipped inside. The maintenance corridor was dim, lit by fluorescent strips above mechanical equipment. She was behind the school's boiler room, which connected to the service hallway that ran along the north side of the building. This hallway was used by custodial staff and was not part of the main student circulation routes. It connected to the main hallways through 2 access doors, one on the first floor near the gymnasium and one on the second floor near the science rooms. She went up the service stairs. She pressed the non-emergency number for the Naperville Police Department from the burner phone, not 911, a direct number that connected to the non-emergency dispatch line. "This is Rose Callahan," she said quietly. "I am a former CIA ground branch operative. Call sign Cardinal. I am currently inside Clifton Elementary School North Service Corridor, 2nd floor. I need to speak with the on-scene commander immediately. Please patch me through or pass a message. Tell them I have building schematics committed to memory, and I have a plan to locate and extract the hostages in room 212. I will not interfere with any federal response, but I need the command element to know I am inside. For safety of everyone involved." She gave them 30 seconds to respond. No response came. She put the phone in her pocket. Then she moved forward. She pressed her ear against the access door to the 2nd floor main hallway. Silence. Then, from somewhere to the right, further down the hall, a man's voice. Low and controlled, but with an edge in it. The edge of someone managing a situation that was not going the way they planned it. She could hear, beneath the voice, the quieter sounds of children, not crying, the stunned, held-breath silence of children who had been told to be quiet and were obeying with the fierce compliance of the genuinely afraid. She identified 2 distinct male voices in the hallway, 2 more sounds from inside a room further off, 2 inside, 2 outside, 4 total, consistent with what Claire had told her. She opened the access door a 1/4 inch. The hallway was long and pale and floored with the industrial linoleum tile that all school hallways were floored with, the same color and pattern as every school hallway Rose had ever walked through as a teacher, and as a mother, and as a grandmother, and now as something she hadn't been in 14 years. The lockers were decorated with student artwork, paper leaves in fall colors, construction paper turkeys, drawings of things that children drew when the world was safe enough to draw them. 2 men in the hallway, one at the far end near the stairwell, standing with a rifle held across his chest. One closer, 20 meters away, standing in front of a classroom door, talking into a phone. Both were wearing civilian clothes, dark jackets, balaclavas. Their body language said tension and impatience, the body language of men who had a plan that was not proceeding on schedule. Rose assessed them. Amateur tactical posture. The one on the phone was holding his rifle with one hand, the other on the phone, which meant his response time to a threat was degraded. The one at the stairwell was turned at a 45-degree angle, watching the stairwell, not the hallway. He was positioned to observe the expected approach vector, the stairs, and not the service door behind him and to his right. She looked at the classroom doors. Room 210, room 211. The next door would be 212, Owen's room. Rose reviewed what she knew. 2 men in the hallway, 2 more in the building, likely in the first-floor main office, which was standard positioning for hostage scenarios, control the communications hub. The children in the hallway were not visible, which meant they were in the classrooms, which meant the classrooms were locked and the hostage takers were controlling access. The man on the phone was standing in front of a door, probably negotiating with the police negotiator outside. She had a window, not a big one, narrow, but Rose had been working with narrow windows for 16 years. She opened the access door fully and stepped into the hallway. She moved to the right, away from the man on the phone and toward the stairwell guard. She moved along the wall, using the row of lockers for cover, each step placed and silent. The stairwell guard was still turned at 45 degrees. She closed the distance to 10 meters. 8. 6. He sensed her at 5 meters. Not saw. Sensed. He began to turn. Rose covered the remaining 5 meters in 3 steps and came inside his rifle's effective range before the barrel had moved halfway. She controlled the weapon with her left hand, redirecting the muzzle toward the ceiling, and simultaneously applied a strike to the side of his neck with her right hand, targeting the vagus nerve. He dropped. She caught the rifle before it hit the floor. She lowered him to the linoleum and secured his wrists with a zip tie from her pocket in 4 seconds. The man on the phone had not turned around. The phone conversation continued, his back to her, his voice rising with frustration about something the negotiator had said. Rose moved toward him. She was 2 meters away when the phone against his ear crackled with the negotiator's voice, a sound that Rose heard clearly in the quiet hallway. "We have movement on the 2nd floor. Can you confirm the status of your men?" The man turned. He saw Rose, 61 years old, gray hair, brown eyes, dark pants and a walking shoe and a suppressed pistol held in both hands, with the kind of steadiness that immediately and irrevocably communicated that this was not a frightened civilian. He raised his rifle. "Put it down," Rose said. Her voice was the same voice she had used to tell 3rd graders to put their pencils down and look at the board. Calm, final, not unkind. The voice of someone who had already decided how this ended and was simply waiting for the other party to catch up. "You're pointing a rifle at a 61-year-old woman and you are going to lose this exchange. Think about what you're doing and put it down." The man's eyes moved over her. He was calculating, looking at the gray hair and the walking shoes and trying to reconcile them with the suppressed pistol and the body language and the expression. "Who are you?" he said. "I'm the grandmother of a child in room 212. But before that, I was the person the United States government sent into rooms like this one for 16 years. And before you decide whether to raise that rifle another inch, I need you to understand that the 2 men downstairs have already been told that the building is compromised on the 2nd floor, which means in approximately 3 minutes, this hallway will have a lot more people in it than just the 2 of us, and the outcome you want, whatever it is not going to happen." He stared at her. Rose kept her eyes on his and moved her left hand to the nearest classroom door. She knocked. 2 short, 1 long. A pattern she had established with herself when Owen started school. A pattern she had mentioned to his teacher, Ms. Morrison, as a safety signal. She had told Ms. Morrison it was something she learned from her own classroom days. A signal to let teachers know it was safe to open the door. She had not told Ms. Morrison that she learned it in a completely different kind of building. The door opened. Ms. Morrison, 26 years old, pale as chalk but steady in the way that certain people are steady when the alternative is that they aren't, and the children in their care feel that alternative. She looked at Rose. She looked at the armed man. She looked at the pistol. "Ms. Morrison," Rose said, "take the children to the service door behind me, the door at the end of the hall. Take them down the service stairs and out the north maintenance exit. There will be officers on the north side of the building by the time you get there." Ms. Morrison looked at the man with the rifle. "He's not going to stop you," Rose said. "Are you?" The man looked at Rose's eyes. He looked at the pistol. He looked at the door to room 212, and then at the service exit at the end of the hallway. His rifle slowly, incrementally lowered. Ms. Morrison moved. She gathered the children. 23 2nd graders, including Owen, came out of room 212 in a line, holding hands the way 2nd graders hold hands, the instinct to be connected to each other when the world is wrong. Owen came 3rd in the line. He was wearing his soccer jersey, the one he wore on Thursdays because he had soccer practice after school. He had his backpack on. He was looking at the floor because Ms. Morrison had told them to look at the floor and move quickly. He looked up when he was even with Rose. He saw his grandmother. He saw the gray hair and the brown eyes and the dark pants and the thing in her hands that his 7-year-old brain couldn't fully categorize, but that he understood. the way children understand things they haven't been taught, as a thing that meant danger for someone and safety for him. "Gran Rose," he said, one whispered syllable. "Keep moving, sweetheart," Rose said. "I'll be right behind you." Owen looked at her for one more second. He pushed his glasses up his nose. Then he took the hand of the girl in front of him and kept moving. Rose watched them go. She watched the line of children file toward the service exit, watched Ms. Morrison shepherd them through, watched the door close behind the last small backpack. Then she turned back to the man with the rifle. "Your turn," she said. He put the rifle on the floor. He put his hands up. He sat down on the linoleum when she told him to, and he stayed there while she secured him. She was efficient. She had done this in other hallways, in other buildings, on other continents, and the mechanics were the same regardless of the geography. The two men on the first floor were encountered by the FBI's hostage rescue team, who breached the building from the south entrance 4 minutes after the children began evacuating from the north. The team moved fast and professionally and found the first-floor hostage-takers attempting to regroup after receiving no communication from the second floor. Both surrendered after a brief standoff. No shots were fired. When the HRT reached the second floor, they found Rose sitting on the hallway floor beside two secured men, her back against the lockers, her pistol in her lap, looking at the paper turkeys and construction paper leaves on the walls. She looked, the team leader later said, like someone waiting for a bus. Unhurried, unbothered, present. The team leader, an agent named Caulfield, approached her carefully. "Ma'am, federal agents. Please set down your weapon." Rose set the pistol on the floor beside her and moved her hands to her knees. "I'm Rose Callahan, former CIA Ground Branch callsign Cardinal. I called the non-emergency line before I entered. I want you to know that in case it wasn't passed along." She looked at him. "The children from room 2-12 exited through the north maintenance door approximately 4 minutes ago. They should be with your officers by now." Caulfield stared at her. He was 34. He had been with the HRT for 6 years. He had seen things. He had not seen this. "Ma'am, how did you get in here?" "Maintenance door on the north side. Lock is standard commercial. Should have been secured." She looked at the two restrained men. "These two are secure. The one at the bottom of the stairs has a rifle that I leaned against the lockers. The one on the phone dropped his when I approached him. Both are physically unharmed." Caulfield looked at his partner. His partner looked back with an expression that could not be put into words, but that contained within it the entire weight of the situation. "Are you injured, ma'am?" Caulfield asked. "No, I'm fine." Rose stood up. Her knees made a sound that they made every morning going down the stairs. A small domestic complaint that seemed deeply incongruous with the current setting. "My grandson is outside. I'd like to see him." Caulfield took her outside. He took her through the south entrance and past the command van, and through the outer perimeter, and across the street to the church parking lot where the evacuated children were being held. There were agents and officers everywhere, and parents who had broken through the outer cordon were reaching their children, and the sound of the parking lot was the sound of 240 children being reunited with the adults who loved them, a sound that was not quiet but that had a quality to it that Rose had not heard in 16 years. Relief. Collective, massive, overwhelming relief. Owen saw her before she saw him. He was standing with Ms. Morrison at the edge of the group, still wearing his backpack, his soccer jersey bright against the gray November morning. He covered the ground between them at a 7-year-old's sprint, which was fast enough, and he hit Rose at the hips and wrapped his arms around her waist and held on with the strength that children summon when they have been frightened, and the frightening is over. "I knew you'd come," Owen said into her jacket. Rose put both arms around him. She held him. She pressed her chin to the top of his head and felt his red hair against her face, and she breathed in the smell of him. Schoolroom and crayons and the particular warmth that children carry. "Of course I came," she said. "You needed your soup." Owen made a sound that was halfway between a sob and a laugh, the sound of a 7-year-old who had been very scared, and was now very safe, and was not entirely sure which feeling to have first. Rose held him. The Cardinal was still. The agent was put away. Gran Rose was here. That was enough. The 4 hostage-takers were identified within hours. 3 were connected to an extremist cell that had been under surveillance by domestic counter-terrorism agencies. The 4th was a recruited local with financial motivations. Their plan had been partially improvised. which explained the tactical disorganization that Rose had exploited. The objective appeared to have been media attention for a political cause, not mass violence, which explained the careful positioning of hostages rather than immediate harm. This did not make what they did acceptable. It made it explicable. All four were charged with federal terrorism-related counts, kidnapping, and weapons charges. The evidence was comprehensive. The sentences were long. The cell they represented was dismantled over the following months, as the FBI traced the connections backward, through financials and communications. A senior agent from the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force visited Rose at her home 3 days after the incident. He was polite and thorough, and he did not ask her too many questions, which told her that someone had pulled her file from wherever it was buried and briefed him on the relevant background. He told her that her actions had been critical to the safe evacuation of the children from room 212, that no legal action would be pursued related to her entry into the building, and that the director was personally aware of the outcome. "The director can forget my name again," Rose said. "He was good at it for 14 years. The agent almost smiled. After he left, Rose called Claire. She told her daughter the version that Claire could receive, which was a truncated, softened version that kept the core facts intact, but removed the details that would require explanations that Rose wasn't ready to give. Claire was silent for a long time after Rose finished. "Mom," Claire said, "you went inside that school." "Yes." "With a gun." "Yes." "Because Owen was in there." "Yes." Another silence. Then Claire said, "Where did you learn to do things like that?" "I told you I taught school." "Mom, I'll explain over dinner. Come on Sunday. Bring Tom and Owen. I'll finish the soup." A pause. "All of it, Claire. I'll explain all of it. But Sunday, in person." "Okay," Claire said quietly. "Okay." Rose hung up. She went to the kitchen. She turned the burner back on under the soup. She added water and tasted it and added a pinch of salt and tasted it again. She hummed while she worked. Something without a melody. Just a sound that filled the kitchen the way warmth fills a kitchen. Gradually and thoroughly and completely. The P-30SK was back in the recess behind the baseboard. The knife was on its clip. The burner phone was in a drawer, everything in its place. Everything where it needed to be until it needed to be somewhere else, which Rose hoped, with the specific and measured hope of someone who knew that hope was not certainty, would never happen again. But Owen was coming on Sunday, and the soup needed finishing. And there were things to explain and things to hold on to, and a grandson with red hair who had said he knew she'd come, with the complete and unquestioning faith of someone for whom Gran Rose was simply the axis around which safety turned. He wasn't wrong. He had never been wrong about that. Some people wear capes. Rose wore walking shoes and a dark jacket, and she had been cardinal for 16 years, and Gran Rose for 7, and she was the same person in both lives, which was the part that mattered most. The same person who kept children safe when the world stopped being safe. Whether the children were in her classroom or her kitchen or her grandson's school hallway didn't change the math. It never had. If you believe that true heroes carry scars and not capes, share this story.